films of Paul Thomas Anderson hold many definitive stylistic features. Often, he is noted for his skillful use of continuous and uninterrupted shots in many of his films, notably in There Will Be Blood, Inherent Vice, Boogie Nights, and Phantom Thread, although they are not confined to these pictures alone. In this audiovisual essay, I will be exploring the ways in which Paul Thomas Anderson utilises his skill for continuous shots in order to develop story and to add a personal sense of auteurship within his films through the aesthetic benefits that these shot types provide an audience. The length of shots is an important consideration that can greatly affect a film. The purpose of editing in any given scene is to create a representation of the way the scene might be perceived by audiences. Longer shots are often associated with slower storylines and can make a scene feel more relaxed. However, this is not always the case in P.T. Anderson's films. For example, the shot in There Will Be Blood after the oil rig has exploded is a continuous shot of the character Daniel carrying his injured son. The long take track in this scene emphasises the anxiety of the situation through the prolonged rescue of his injured son. Whilst the camera follows them in an undisturbed and slow manner, it assists in creating a sense of tension and urgency, and skillfully demonstrates the frantic mindset of the protagonist. Quentin Tarantino had this to say about the piece.
By the way, I think one of the most modern, was one of the great modern original soundtracks, to be done of this last decade. But once that music kicks in and you see Longview running with the little boy, then it's on. That is a cinematic set piece.
These long shots help to highlight some of the common themes that are prevalent in Anderson's movies: family conflict, depression, regret, and greed. Each of his films to date holds one elaborate and uninterrupted take that lasts 2 to 4 minutes, often combining the use of cranes, tracks, and steadicams, and like all long takes are extremely time-consuming and difficult to execute. The average shot length is recorded at 2.5 seconds. Through this, we can understand the pure mastery of Paul Thomas Anderson's use of long shots. These long shots hold the visual advantage of being very enthralling for viewers as they depict a continuous, livable reality in real time and demonstrate the skill of the filmmaker and crew. However, these shots aren't used by Anderson as simply a gimmick. Instead, they add to the storyline. In the 3-minute-long opening sequence of Boogie Nights, the long take acts as a way for audiences to be directly and immediately thrown into 1970s LA. Seamlessly demonstrating the 70s era through the mise-en-scène of costume, hair, set design and props such as cars, as well as introducing all the major characters in the first opening sequence, it's clear that through this use of the technique, Anderson is able to provide audiences with the necessary information to progress the narrative, whilst also demonstrating his skill as a filmmaker. In Inherent Vice, we see these longer shots being used for comic effect. At points, the long takes add to a sense of surrealism to the film, as seen in one of the final scenes between Doc and Bigfoot. The drug-related rhetoric is heightened by the use of prolonged camera work of Doc's reaction to Bigfoot. Also, in the car scene, the use of continuous shots is very obviously used for comic effect. The camera lingers on Doc's reaction and invites audiences to feel the same sense of bewilderment at Bigfoot's comical actions. We can therefore understand Paul Thomas Anderson's prolific use of continuous shots as means of not only portraying his skill as a filmmaker, but also to convey motifs, progress narratives, and to even create humour.